Scott, here is your 6105. I've looked it over. It's nice. It's generally fine. It's an interesting piece to see because because whoever worked on it did the changes to the hands that we talked about, which I don't see very often. Your movement visually, it's a little hazy. It's original, but it's not worn. There's a little bit of wear around the edge of the mainspring barrel, which indicates that lower port is wearing, which is just something these 6000 series three-handers are just so prey to, because there's a lot of torque to the mainspring, and it wears out that lower port because it doesn't even have a bushing, and so it just sort of pushes sideways, and then the whole barrel starts to twist, and it rams up underneath and starts hitting the underside of the train bridge, and it starts to wear, and it sucks off all kind of power, and it's something that it's one of the few design flaws of this series of watches, and so there's always some remediation I have to do to make that better. Let's talk about the numbers. You can see it's kind of hacky and noisy, not particularly happy. It's relatively steady. It has a little bit of beat error, but you can see from the amplitude 150, that's a good 80 to 100 points lower than what I would want to see when it is done. So it's running pretty much like an original unrestored 6105, which is what this is. It's running normally. So without service, this is kind of what you're getting. Very, very typical for an unrestored original Seiko. It just tells me that it's dry and that it's dirty and the mainspring is full of gunk and the mainspring barrel is touching the underside of the train bridge, and it's one of those things. Hang on, I want to talk about the hands. I suppose I can talk about the case too. Generally, it's nice. It's an original watch. More and more as time goes by, there are fewer and fewer of these. The problems with the 6105s is that the crowns are not screw down, and the seals are not independently renewable. If you want to get a new seal, you have to replace the crown. And that's kind of a pain, because if it's just a replacement seal on the crown, that's much easier to do. But if you have to replace the entire crown, like you do on these, it makes it less likely that people are going to do it. And so these watches generally are just not as resistant to water long term as, say, the subsequent divers, the 6309s, which do have a crown that has a renewable seal and also is a screw down. This is not a screw down. I can feel, you can see your crown is just moving around. It's because the seal that's in there is ancient, and it's not holding anything. There are aftermarket crowns for this model watch, but they look nice on the outside, but internally they're wrong, and the crown tube has to be shortened in order for them to work correctly. That was my experience. I've heard that may be different. I'll have to see. I do have original Seiko made crowns. They're original, brand new, but they're decades old, and they are usable, but the crown seals are a little stiff, but they're certainly better than what's in this now. But they're expensive. So that's something you can think about. As for the hands, knowing that this watch was coming in and I was doing some other work, I went and found in all of my stuff a set of original hands that I went ahead and reloomed. And you can see my loom color is pretty solid. And see if I can find this other thing. Where's that sweep hand? There it is. I'm trying to get this to focus in here. So that would definitely be an improvement. That would be what was in there originally, and we can certainly talk about using these. As you can see, the white loom color is good, and so I'm pretty proud of my job, matching these colors. And if you wanted to go ahead and get this set of hands, then we could certainly talk about that, and then your watch would look correct with the right hands and everything else like that. It's just up to you whether you feel like dealing with that, but that's what I do. But you can do whatever you want. This set of hour and minute hands is from a dress watch. Obviously not correct for this. They're Seiko. They're just not for this model. And this sweep hand here is for a later 6309 diver. But it's up to you. I would, if it were my watch, I would, me personally, I would rebuild the movement. I would clean the case. I wouldn't do any cosmetics to anything. I would even leave the original insert with its wear. I would replace this crown with a new Seiko made original crown, and I would replace the hands with the ones that I just showed you, because I have all three. I have the hour hand, the minute hand, and the sweep hand. I have them all, and they are reloomed, and you can have those in there, and that's what it would supposed to look like. Anyway, that's it. You tell me what you want to do. Okay, thanks, guys.